It says in Parshas Pekudei, Zov, Tcheles, Vargomen, Vesilas, Shoni, Veshesh Moshe Zov. Out of gold, turquoise, wool, purple wool, scarlet wool, and twined linen. Chapter 39, verse 2. The Torah normally prohibits the mixture of wool and linen. It's called shatnez. You're not allowed to mix wool and linen in clothing. One important exception is the priestly garments. The priestly garments, you're allowed to mix the wool and linen.
Why?
You'll see. There are two classic explanations of why the Torah normally prohibits the mixture of wool and linen. So first you have to ask the question, why to begin with it's prohibited to mix wool and linen, right?
Right.
And then find out why there's exception to that rule.
What I heard was something about your vessel or your connections of your praying and anything else that you have. There's a shrink wrap, so to speak, not allowing that light.
Let's see. One
to come through.
So one is that linen represents harmful influences, while wool represents positive influences. Interesting. Rabbeinu Bachir on Leviticus 19:19 in the Zohar, Chele Gimel mentions this concept that the linen represents harmful influences, while wool represents positive influences.
And what's
the other is
consist of usually? I know with shroud we have linen that we bury with.
There you go. That's already an example of.
What do we have in clothing? If I go into any store or anything, is there something that's actually made out of linen?
Yeah, a lot of you have people who specifically would buy linen shirts because they're lighter and more airy. They're not as hot as wool. Wool is hot.
Okay, so there's now cotton, linen, and wool, and then you have polyester.
I actually gave my jacket a few weeks ago to check, and there's a rabbi checks that there's no wool and linen, and tells you I checked it, it's fine. So the reason, number one is because of the reasons mentioned by Rabbeinu Bachye and the Zohar, that linen has harmful influences and wool represents positive influences. The other is that while neither nor linen are intrinsically harmful, the mixture is. Meaning by themselves, they're not harmful. Linen is not harmful.
A linen jacket
by itself, yeah, there's no problem with it. Or linen shirt, like I said before, linen shirt, linen pants, no problem. But the mixture is harmful.
It's like a horror wrapped into one fighting.
No, it's similar to the law of kilaim, like taking the seed of let's say cucumber and tomato and putting them in one pot. There's an issue. The first reason affirms the normal way we lead our lives, avoiding evil and doing good. Let's say linen represents evil, so we're staying away from it. Wool represents good, so we're sticking to the wool, to the good. From a deeper perspective, however, evil can, in many cases, be or seen as the expression of some very high level of holiness that for some reason has suffered some tragic fall. From this perspective, linen or flax embodies and expresses a very high level of holiness. Even from this perspective, linen should not normally be mixed with wool, even though we just learned that linen has a great potential, since what matters is how an entity is expressed in this world, regardless of its source. You can be from a very high source, it's all beautiful and nice, but how do you express yourself down here? But in the tabernacle, where divinity was revealed in everything, indeed, that answers your question, why was the exception to the rule? We'll learn the issues with the mixture of wool and linen, and why there is exception to the rule. But in the tabernacle where divinity was revealed, and everything indeed manifested in its spiritual source, the mixture of wool and flax was permitted. From here we see that the ideal is to reveal divinity so intensely that evil ceases to exist. It ceases to exist as evil, it manifests its source in holiness and becomes our ally rather than our opponent. So in the Beis HaMikdash it was okay because of the revelation of godliness.
Right, but was it required to have that mixture? Or can you just do
No,
with wool?
in the Beis HaMikdash it was required because they had specific instructions how everything has to be made. So yes, it was required.